What up, my dudes, and welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to be learning how to make delicious Mapo Tofu, but not any type of Mapo Tofu, gluten-free Mapo Tofu, because my stomach can't handle wheat anymore, and getting old sucks. So anyway, I know what you're thinking. I don't want tofu, it's bad. Hey, tofu gets a bad rap in this country because we use it to make burgers and hot dogs and stuff that has no business being turned into. So, let me show you how to make gluten-free tofu the right way. Let's go.
This is Dobu John. You're going to use a tablespoon of this later if you're not gluten intolerant. If you are gluten intolerant or celiac, just follow my substitute. You're going to need a half pound of pork, some homemade chili oil, store-bought works if you don't have it, and you're going to need a couple green onions, 1 onion, 4 garlic cloves, and an inch of ginger, using your magic knife to chop everything. And remembering that you need to peel your ginger. You can use a spoon to peel it. It makes it a lot easier to do so. Now, onions are not traditional in this dish, but I've been to a couple restaurants to serve it with it in there, so I like to add them. And it adds a lot of flavor. So, once everything's nice and chopped and minced like this, we're going to put it in a bowl to the side, and we're going to season our pork. Using a half pound of pork, or 8 ounces, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of sesame oil, 1 teaspoon of salt, and then about 2 teaspoons of dry sherry instead of Chinese cooking wine, and a half tablespoon of cornstarch. If you're not gluten intolerant, you can just use Chinese cooking wine instead. Combine everything to a nice little ball, give it a nice little pat for affirmations, and let it know you'll be seeing it soon because it's going to go in your belly. Now we're going to get some Szechuan peppercorns, and we're going to add about a half tablespoon to a teaspoon of Szechuan peppercorns, making sure that you get them a nice grind until they look a little bit like this. Kind of coarse, but also kind of fine. Now we're going to move on to our tofu. Now normally you're going to use silken tofu for this, but my wife prefers firm, so I'm going to use firm tofu. Open this up and realize you should have drained this over your sink first, and go drain it and clean off your cutting board. Now we're going to chop it tall-wise in half once. Then we're going to chop it in the lengthwise like this. And then finally we're going to add our last chops until it looks like little cubes like so. If you ended up with triangles, how did you do that? I was very specific. Now we're going to add some oil to a wok and heat up to a high heat until it's nice and seasoned and smoking. Not sure if you can see it from here, but that's okay. I can assure you it's smoking. Next, we're going to add our vegetables that we chopped up earlier into the skillet, and we're going to give these a nice little toss, making sure that we mix these up along the way. Look at that tossing action. Until they are nice and sauteed into a light golden brown, not a full dark brown like this. Now we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of our homemade chili oil, making sure that we get some of them chili solids from the bottom, and pour those directly onto our vegetables. Then we're going to give them a nice little stir. Should look like this. Now you are going to want to work fast. You have about 30 seconds to do this before you need to add your pork. You do not want to burn those chili solids. It will choke you up and turn your house into a pepper spray bomb. Next we're going to add some Szechuan peppercorns that we ground up. Make sure you reserve some for later as a garnish. Using as much or as little as you want. You do need to use some, but some people don't like the numbing aspect, so that's okay. Now we're going to use some sambal chili paste to give it a nice kick to replace that Dobu John. Now it's not 1-for-1 flavor. You are going to have to mix this up. And again, this is a replacement if you're gluten intolerant. If you are not gluten intolerant, you can just use the Dobu John. Next we're going to pour in 2 cups of boned beef broth. And then we are going to add some MSG. This is an easy brand MSG you can find in any store. We're going to use half teaspoon of it. This is going to give it a nice restaurant flavor. And it's going to make up for that salt we're losing from the Dobu John that we're not adding in here. Now we're going to give this a nice stir. Bring it to a boil like this. And when it's boiling like so, we are going to go ahead and add our tofu to our now Mapo Tofu. And give it a nice stir, making sure not to break up anything. If you're using silken tofu, please boil it for about 10 minutes. This will keep it together and your tofu won't fall apart. It will still taste fine if it falls apart, but it won't look as nice. Now we're going to stack a bunch of rice into our little salsa bowls, pat them down like so, and turn them over onto a plate so we have nice little mounds like this. Now that you've impressed your wife with your 2 mounds, go ahead and whisk together 2 tablespoons of water to 1 tablespoon of cornstarch to make a slurry, and pour that into our Mapo Tofu. You're going to stir this around and it's going to thicken until it finally reduces. In the meantime, go poke a little hole in your mounds and add yourself some green onions once it's reduced down like this. It should make a nice sauce. We're going to go ahead and plate this in the bottom like so. And then we're going to add a little bit more of that sambal en bloc or chili garlic sauce like mine to make ourselves a nice little lava river.
Very nice. Beautiful.
Now we're going to add some more green onion as garnish all over the place with no care whatsoever, and some toasted sesame seeds with no care whatsoever. Now we're going to add our reserved Szechuan peppercorns we grounded up. And look at that. That looks delicious. Even if you did forget how plating works. Now let's go to the wifey test.
First impressions, what do you think?
Looks really good. Smells good. Nice volume with the tofu. Nice chunkiness with the meat. Very meaty. I like the little touch of sesame seeds and the flow of the lava, which is the chili garlic sauce.
Okay, you can just eat now.
Yay!
Careful, it will be hot. How will she like it?
Very good.
Good?
Nice ginger in there too.
Alright, I am going to try some then. But look, we got the little Mapo Tofu volcano for a notoriously spicy dish. That was really good. It's really physically hot.
Good with the chili garlic sauce, isn't it?
Yeah, and I like it with the chili garlic sauce. I know that's not traditional, but we always add it to ours anyway. The sambal en bec. Sorry, the chili sambal. I'll cut that part out. Maybe I'll leave it in. Really helps punch up the flavor because you can't use the double John in this dish if you're gluten intolerant. So it's a nice little reround in the sherry wine. Makes a really great marinade for this meat instead of Chinese cooking wine. But yeah, all these flavors come together really well. So I'm gonna dig in. You just cut to me in the outro. I'll let outro Marshall take care of this. I'm gonna be eating Marshall. Love Mapo Tofu. So that's gonna wrap it up for today. If you could like, comment, and subscribe, it really will help me grow. I hope you enjoyed this recipe for gluten-free Mapo Tofu. I know that's not 100% authentic, but you know, you gotta work around where you gotta work around. But it is delicious, and it will feed about a family of 4. And I hope you see why tofu is absolutely scrumdiddly umptious and gets a bad rap in this country. But anyway, toodles.